one.
Hello, welcome to Out of the Darkness. We have a very, very special midweek stream or midweek recording, I guess we'll call it, going on. Typically, we don't get the opportunity to have Sir Tim in the studio, but in lieu of the Democratic debate last night, we have to come out and we have to talk about Kamala Harris. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. While everybody is busy kissing her rear end this morning, I just have to call the BS that we actually saw last night. Taking the gloves off completely as the only black man on the panel, I feel like I need to address address a couple of things. I'm really frustrated, and let me just say, my political views or my views on this subject are not necessarily the views of all of my distinguished guests, being Soder and Tim, but I will speak on behalf of myself. I'm getting really frustrated with this weaponization of race. It really takes away from constructive conversation. I really do feel that, for her to come out last night and to open up the conversation as the only black person on the stage, I want to address race. Okay, yeah, I get that. But then to, in the same breath, talk about the importance to adopt an equality law on a federal level. I'm sorry, you don't get to elevate yourself as the only black person on stage, and then at the same time, in the same breath, say that you want equality. You are in the running for one of the most powerful positions in the world. You are a front runner. And on top of all of that, you attempt to use your race as a method by which to elevate yourself, race and gender, by the way, to elevate yourself above the field. Now, are you looking for equality or are you looking for superiority? And how dare you use your race as a method by which to do that and then say you are going to then get the position and you are going to represent all people? Let me say this as a black person first and foremost. Kamala, we know who you are. You went onto YouTube, onto a show on YouTube. I will not talk about the show. You guys can check it out. You talked about how you smoked marijuana all through college, graduated law school, got a job as a prosecutor, and then went and put young black men in jail for doing the same thing that you were doing all through college. Number two, you then talk about how you worked from the bottom and came to the top, but yet the rest of us have read the stories and found out that you did not. In fact, you did some other unscrupulous things with your superiors in order to get to the top. But I digress. The thing that I don't understand, I've never been, and Tim, that's why I wanted you here, Sir Tim. I've never been in a political debate, but I know you have.
Yep.
Now, it's a chess. It's a chess game, right?
It is.
Explain that to us. Explain to us what was going on last night, and why it unfolded the way that it did.
So, because I'm a jaded politician, I spend less time listening to the actual content and watching more of what's happening. It's actually very interesting to me, the dynamics that are in the room. And so there's a couple things, and that's what I'd like to address, at least right now. There's a couple of things that were going on in the room, and I actually applaud Kamala Harris also. I applaud her because she was very successful at the task at hand. What's the task at hand? She's being talked about today. She's risen up in the attention of this, probably higher than whatever she was before. And the way that she did that was executed extremely well. First of all, the person that had the original power, perceived power in the room, was Joe Biden. Okay? I think he's leading in the polls, or at least a lot of people say that's who's the one person that could beat President Trump. And so she needed to go after him. That's one of the things that you do. You go after the big dog in the room, okay? The second thing that she did is you need to occupy space. This is a marketing thing. Find your space and make sure that you own that space, meaning no one else can defeat you in that. So watching the video, when she came in and said, I want to speak about race. She didn't even have to say being the only black woman in the room. She could have said, I want to speak about race. This is on camera. Who's going to say no to that? Then she said, even though he wasn't part of the current discussion, she said, I'd like to talk to Vice President Biden on this. And she went after him in an area that if he opens his mouth, he sounds defensive. Anything that he says does not add up to what she would say next. So he was trying to keep quiet. He did a pretty good job of pivoting, is what we call it, and saying, no, this is what really happened. I disagreed with the Department of Education, anyone that's watched the video. But Camilla was incredibly effective at articulating to the Democrat base, to the liberal Democrat base, the points of race relations, the point of when she told the story, she kind of told her story and then did a Paul Harvey thing. You know who that girl was? That was me.
And now the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. That is powerful.
Hmm.
And I commend her for that. She executed and did what she was supposed to do. And you know that because we're on YouTube today talking about her and what she did. Somewhat incensed, but there are people that are going, yeah, go, go. And that's what she needs to do. Now, the difficulty that she's going to have is she's talking to a very specific base, even within the Democrat Party. So this is all about moving to the top of that and winning eventually the nomination. That's where she goes. After nomination, you have to pivot and you have to find out a way to speak to the broader population. That's probably where she's going to have difficulty with this. I remember back when President Barack Obama did this in the same period of time, he was saying very inflammatory things that people were like, when he gets to the general election, how's he going to do this? They got to the general election and he was able to do it just fine. And people kind of forgot the past and forgave him and moved on to the current issues.
I want to speak on that though a little bit because in this same ilk, and obviously I wanted to focus on Kamala Harris, and I understand from a purely political standpoint, it was masterful. But
it was damaging. It's what's happening in our society and the political process. It's tearing us down.
And that's the issue that I want to focus on because I am scared to death, right? When I'm watching a political debate with 20 some odd people on the panel, right? I mean, well, they had to split it up in two. There were so many people. And it's a race to the left. I mean, nobody wants to be middle of the road anymore. You want to, I mean, these guys are racing to be as far to the left as they possibly can. For myself, as a conservative or as a patriot, right? To be in a situation where Joe Biden is the most conservative man on that stage is terrifying.
You're the second person in 24 hours that said that to me.
I mean, terrifying to me. For people to attack him on the idea of states' rights is just it's concerning. So my question to you is, yes, I understand that if Obama were on stage last night, he would have been looked at as being a moderate.
Yes.
I mean, very much so, I think. So how do you come back? Because I don't believe that the majority of Americans believe the way that those people do.
Well, here's how. The majority of Americans aren't watching this stuff right now. Us political geeks, we think everyone's paying attention like we are. By and large, this is summertime. We're in Minnesota. Summertime, what are we doing? We're at the lakes. Outside. We're doing chores outside. We're doing different because we have a long winter, so we want to get we're playing golf. We want to get every second of time that we can outside. So we really aren't paying attention to this. So what happens is right now, the job, if you're a candidate, is to gain attention and gain donors. They kind of work back and forth with each other, but establish yourself in such a position. Now, if Kamala Harris falls a little bit short, let's say she falls a little bit short of being the presidential nominee, kind of simple to say, well, then what about vice presidential? That might be an option, but there's also many other positions in which you become a key voice and become a key position. Because if you have a constituency that's following you, then whoever, even if you're not the nominee, the person who becomes a nominee has to include you in it. So this isn't always, you say, why would 25 people be running for president and only one is going to be the candidate? There's lots of other degrees. There's a future campaign for president. There is positions in cabinets. There's just so many different opportunities. And I do firmly believe, I'm not questioning that her intent is to become the next president of the United States. I have no question that she's doing that. But understand, as this unfolds, all these things happen, and so when you're saying, how can something this inflammatory get by people later on? They typically do. Now, in our current society, each election cycle, we get more and more radicalized, if you will, during the presidential process. And things happen where I do think there's a line that perhaps will cross where it's no longer accepted. I don't know if we're approaching that now. What happens in the future, and as they say, history will let us know about that.
I mean, one of the things that she said, I mean, there are so many things, but one of the things that she said that Americans are looking for the government to put food on their table. Guys, in Soder, that infuriated me because
That
I'm not
was
looking for that at all. I mean, we've all seen government cheese. Nobody wants that crap.
I have not actually.
You have not
I
seen
have not
government
seen
cheese.
government cheese. As far as I'm aware,
You
I've
privileged
never seen
white
it.
man.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry.
You should be ashamed of your privilege.
I always am.
Okay. Well, all that to the
Every morning
side.
I go, "Oh
You s-
no,
you
here I go
s-
privileging
Here
again."
you go privileging again. All that to the side though. But that I say that tongue in cheek. It's just a joke. But um, it seems ridiculous to me that she is attempting to say that, or she is saying that Americans are looking for the government to put food on their table. We're not looking for that at all. I'm not looking for
I'm
that.
looking for the government to get out of the way, to
I'm
make
thinking
itself
about
smaller.
all the food that I could buy with the taxes that they take out of my pay. I mean, I could buy my own groceries for a couple years with what they take out of my pay. Right? I want to be taxed less. I mean, those are the things that I want from the federal government. I want
But
them
see,
to get
then the
out of my way.
government's giving you that money and putting the food on your table.
Oh, okay, okay. So
That's
they're
how that
gonna
works.
they're going to take $1 from me and give me 30 cents worth of
No, no,
food.
they're just not taking that dollar. But because they're not taking it, they're giving it to you for you to use on food.
Oh, okay.
That's how that works.
Is that how that
That's
works?
how that works.
I'd be curious to find out what the plan is. I mean, so essentially they're talking about um, getting rid of healthcare is the way as it is, the government providing healthcare. So essentially, last night we heard they want to get rid of insurance, and the government's going to provide healthcare. The government's going to provide food. The government's going to provide education, and the government's going to also provide a wage because
Oh,
Yang
oh yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
talking about doing a thousand
He didn't
dollars
talk a
per
whole
person.
lot last night.
No, no, he didn't
It's
talk a
like they
whole
don't
heck of a
like
lot.
Asian guys on MSNBC.
I don't know. I'm not
Like
sure
they really
exactly.
only like super white
I guess there's
or
not really
super
enough
dark.
Asian issues. So if he would have been able to say, as the only Asian on the stage, I would like to speak to, he might have gotten somewhere with that. But my concern with it all, again, is that that's a false premise. Americans, at least real Americans, patriots, aren't looking for the government to give them money, are not looking for the government to give them food. They're not looking for the government to provide for them. They're looking for the government to get out of their way so that they can provide for themselves. Um, but of course, that's just my thought. Um, Tim, I guess my concern and my question is, how do we walk back? Because it seems as though we're going so far left, and the biggest concern for me, to be honest, is that we're being drug along on the right side, right? So I feel like those of us that are conservative are being drugged so far to the left that if our forefathers, conservative forefathers, could see us now, they would consider us to be tyrants as well in a lot of ways. So how do we walk this back and get back to, I mean, even get back to center?
Right. Well, here's the unfortunate truth. First of all, we have been drugged further and further to the left over the years. Seems to be accelerating in recent years. That has a lot to do with as people as you put it, your words, get on the government cheese. Okay,
Right.
who was it famous? One of our founding fathers that said, when people figure out how they can, how's that said? I'm paraphrasing it wrongly. Basically, tax to the point that they can pay themselves.
Right.
When they find they can vote themselves from
Money's
the
out of the
purse.
treasury.
That's basically what we're seeing. Okay. And so all of this is a push to the left. A lot of people, you say, yep, absolutely. Most people want to just live their own lives. And I actually still truly believe that. I think most people are kind of passive about that. They don't think about it every day by
Mm.
any means. People generally want that. Um, but they also want a lot of the things that are afforded to you when you have government run programs that benefit you in some way. And I guarantee you, if we sat down, we would find ourselves in ways in which we were hypocrites to where we're actually benefiting from something.
I
Now, I'm
mean,
not. I'm not talking about roads, or I'm not talking about military. Um,
but like I said, I'm a libertarian, so therefore I'm consistent. But go ahead.
yeah, I'm hunching that if we did like a survey of your life, I'd say, well, what about that over there? And you're like, well, but no, that's different.
You know what? I would love for you to come up with a list of
Okay.
some of those things, and for us to discuss them because I'm always looking to search out hypocrisy in my own life, and if I find it, I pluck it out.
Yeah, but it's difficult to pluck it out because it's so enmeshed in our society. But be that as it may, offline? I'll explain one that I already thought of already. Uh, so anyway, but we are moving left. It's been it's certainly in my lifetime, but really post World War II. You could probably back it up to before World War II, depression, and maybe even an industrial revolution.
Sure.
We've been moving towards this, and it's kind of so. I'm such a nerd. I once watched a movie called Cromwell on PBS. You ever see Cromwell on PBS?
No, I can't say I have.
Well, Oliver Cromwell is basically, simply put, who brought democracy or a republic, sorry, into our world, where they brought in representatives in England, and they originally overthrew the king. Okay, to do it, they deposed the king, and they had the House of Commons, House of Lords were very limited, and a very short period of time later, I believe Cromwell was still alive. I think it was not too many years later, the people demanded a king back. Okay, and a lot of the things that the king afforded were things that were a little bit nicer. They were the government chiefs, basically. We want a king, and so society tends to devolve towards government having all the power. When the United States was formed in its perfect sense, a week after it was formed and we were a nation, there was something that the world had never seen before, because we truly ruled our own lives.
Hmm.
And the role of government was there just for the absolute limited things that we need to have an organized society. And then it's crept away from that ever since. And
Sure.
again, in the 20th century, we saw it accelerate. 21st century, we're seeing it exponentially accelerate even more. So I did want to get back to, and I apologize. I had to step away. We had a minor family emergency. That when your wife calls 4 times in a row, you answer the phone.
That's right.
So
That many times?
and it was going on its fifth time, so I answered the phone. And but this concern about using race, using some of these other weaponized positions to kind of steer our society in an unhealthy way. It's not exactly the way you said it, but that's the way that I say it. I am very concerned about that. I told my kids growing up, one of the phrases that I used sometimes with them, and now I repeat it often now that I'm older and I see where the kids are going. I said, if someone can get you to fear something or someone else, they have power over you.
Mm.
And so this is what we're doing. So I always like when they say, well, this is the Hispanic community leader, or this is the Black community leader, or this is the Christian leader. This person represents everyone that is standing behind that defined group. Okay, that's a very dangerous
Sure.
thing to stand by, because you don't even know if they truly represent that. Now, to a degree, they will, because they go back to that, whatever that community is, and they create fear. They create distrust of whoever the boogeyman is out there. Okay. And the only way that you can deal with that fear and mistrust is to listen even more to that person who's now empowered all the more. You know, oh, who's the, um, I'm just forgetting his name, the one of the black community leaders, especially of the 80s and 90s.
Al
Al
Sharpton.
Sharpton.
Yeah.
Okay. I was told a story that one of the formulas, and this was told by somebody when they came to his community. This wasn't like I read in a magazine. This was a story. So there was some sort of racial tension thing that flared up. Work situation, police maybe, or something like that. But Al Sharpton came to town, and one of the first places, if not the first places he went, was to a bunch of the businesses in town and basically said, "Write me a check for $10,000, or I'm going to have a bunch of picketers out in front of your business today."
Hmm.
Okay, so what did they do? They mitigated the situation. They wrote the check. Okay, while it perpetuated it, it
Sounds
took
like
care. Now,
protection money.
whether that was true
Extortion.
to
Yeah.
whether that was true to Al Sharpton or not, probably was, because I've heard that similar story some other places. Okay, whether that's true or not, that's a great model of what exactly we're talking about here, where you identify a problem, you elevate the risk of it, and people will mitigate it. It's why companies usually settle out of court. You know, the whole
Sure.
3M thing last year, where they settled for hundreds of millions of dollars with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency on something that I don't know that they even really believe they were guilty on, but settling for $300 million, I think it was a lot cheaper than $1 billion in 4 years of litigating it.
Sure.
So that's the formula that's very discouraging to me and very concerning. That when you have what Camilla did, I'm jumping all over the place. So I hope you're following me here, folks. What Camilla did was she incited a group of people to say, "Go, Camilla, go," but it was with a bunch of false premises and throwing in all sorts of things that are good talking points that we've heard before, but they're flawed arguments that no one's going to argue with her about because she is the black woman in the room. You're not going to say you don't know what you're talking about with
Right.
race, but it perpetuates a bunch of lies.
Sure.
That's a problem. That's my problem.
It creates a false narrative.
And in our society, we're not willing to step up and have the bold, difficult conversations. And your willingness to say, you know what, maybe that's wrong, because you don't want to be say it's wrong. You know, the Ilhan Omar thing that's here happening in Minnesota. My good friend Representative Steve Jaskowski stood up, and there's a state representative, now U.S. Congresswoman, who very patently, very likely violated U.S. law in major ways. Married her brother, lied on FAFSA, lied on her taxes, all this stuff. And you know what he's getting? You're a racist because, and you hate Muslims. Okay? I can tell you it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that. But because he is a white guy from southeast Minnesota, and he must be racist, and that's why he's going after her. Is there a little bit of going after her more because she's a very liberal Democrat? There's probably some intent there. Okay? Two-party system, that's what we do. Okay?
It's concerning to me for a lot of different ways, and the reason why is I'll go back to what my grandmother used to always say. My grandmother always said that a dog that'll bring a bone will carry one back. What people do with you, they will do to you. And I'm telling you right now, minorities, black people especially, step up, stand up, look out, and realize what is happening. Because when people use race to um, to indict you, right? And they are essentially trying to use to buy you off, right? Offering free stuff, offering um, reparations, whatever it might be, free education, those types of things. First off, there's nothing free. It's gonna have to come from somewhere. But when people are supporting you, they start to take you for granted. And the black community has been one of the biggest victims of an entire political party taking us for granted. They come out every couple of years and they make promises. They come out every couple of years and they tell us they're going to do this and they're going to do that, but our communities have not gotten safer. They've not gotten more prosperous. We've given them full control and they've continued to get our votes. I'm telling you, guard your vote. Look out, see what's going on, and realize that eventually there's going to be another victim. And the black people will be left to the wayside, and it will be the transgender. It will be or some other group is going to be the next standard bearer. At some point, we have to take our own future in our own hands and realize that if we don't stand up for ourselves, no one else will. So, thank you very much, Sir Tim, for joining us and giving us some perspective. Always great to have you, Mr. Producer Soder.
Well,
And
I tried to do my part.
well, we appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday. Have a great, great day. We're getting closer and closer to 4th of July. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you soon.